You look younger here than in the picture.
I look younger here.
Yeah, than in the picture.
I suppose the difference is hair.
All good, all good.
So when I get Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is one of 8 member countries of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the Eccb, headquartered in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Our program, Conversation with the Governor, comes to you live this evening from the conference room of the Beachcombers Hotel in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. It can be seen live on SVG Television, VC3 Channel 114, the API Channel 116. It can be heard live on the National Broadcasting Corporation and is also carried live on all our Facebook pages. I'm Dionne John, your moderator for this evening. And for the next hour, we'll take a look at the Governor's mission to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, the development and prospects of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, and other current and topical issues. We'll also take your calls and WhatsApp messages at 784-493-9861. That's 784-493-9861. Send your questions to Eccb Connects Facebook page or YouTube channel. At this time, I am pleased to welcome back to our pristine island of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, the Grenadian-born Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Timothy N.J. Antoine. Good evening, Governor. Welcome to Saint Vincent and welcome to our program.
Good evening, Dionne, and it's a pleasure to be back. And I say good evening to all our viewers, listeners, wherever you are in Saint Vincent, the Grenadines, and around the world.
First of all, Governor, I wish to congratulate you on your reappointment for a second term. What are some of the highlights and accomplishments of your first term?
Well, thank you, and I will start by passing your commendation to our team. I work with a great team at the bank, and with that team, we've been able to accomplish much in the first term. So I think to respond to your question, I should reflect or invite you to reflect on the mission of the bank, which we refined in 2016 when I assumed office. And the mission of the Ectb is simply this: to advance the good of the people of the currency union by maintaining monetary and financial stability and promoting growth and development. So, Dionne, we have to start with the EC dollar. The dollar has remained strong and stable over the last many years, and that has continued during my tenure. Of course, I have to pay tribute to my predecessors, the late, great Sir Dwight Venner, Sir Errol Allen, as well as, of course, the first governor, Sir Cecil Jacobs, and all those who've worked over the last now almost 40 years at the Eccb. We've kept the dollar strong. Not only have we done that, but the reserves, the foreign reserves, have actually grown, indeed, by almost $1 billion over that first term. So I think that's the first important accomplishment. People assume and take for granted our EC dollar, but we have to work to keep it and maintain its strength and stability. We've done that. Secondly, it's what we've done in the area of public communications and stakeholder engagement. I said when I assumed office that we wanted to make the bank more accessible to the people that we serve. We wanted to make it plain, make it simple, to break it down, to lift the veil, as it were, so people truly understood what the central bank does in their name and for them. And we embarked on a series of public communication initiatives. Perhaps the best known one is Eccb Connects. And here I must pay tribute to your countrywoman, Shomalan Kirby, who led that work over the last many years. And now we have a team that is pushing a lot of those public communications. Wherever I go in our currency union, people speak about the fact that they are hearing more about the bank, the work of the bank, and they feel that they better understand what we do. That's important. Finally, I'll touch on the innovations that we have introduced over that first term, now into my second term. Digital currency, polymer, greening up our campus. And I don't know if you know this, but our bank has received 5 global awards over the last 5 years. 5 global awards. That's unprecedented in our almost 40-year history. And so I want to pay tribute to the team at the bank, my colleagues, management and staff, as well as our board and council for what was in fact a very satisfactory first term.
Well, congratulations, Governor, on those 5 years, on those 5 awards. Now, you are undertaken a mission across the Eccb countries, and you have so far visited Anguilla, Montserrat, and St. Lucia. If you can just sum up the visits that you've had so far.
They've been great. We did not travel for 2 years as a consequence of the pandemic, and we are really pleased to be back in our member countries engaging with the people that we serve. And Dionne, it's very important for us to be accountable. So when we go to our countries, it's about accounting for our stewardship, but also hearing from people what are on their minds, what are their concerns, and what suggestions they have for how we could better serve them. That's important for us, because at ECCB, we always say feedback is a gift. So in Anguilla, and every country is a little different, there's some common themes. Cost of living is an issue in all of our countries. So I've heard that in Anguilla, Montserrat, St. Lucia. I've heard it in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines as well. But in Anguilla, for example, they were grappling with the imminent introduction of the GST, the General Sales Tax, somewhat like a VAT. You know, in Montserrat, it was about connectivity. In St. Lucia, there were issues about the banks and crime. You know, so every country has different things that they highlight in terms of what they're focused on and how we could help. But they've been great, great engagements. And again, we're very pleased with the way people receive us when we visit those countries.
Well, we here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines had the opportunity of hosting you for the last couple of days. What are some of your takeaways from our visit?
Well, first of all, let me just tell you who we met. So we've had engagement, obviously, with the Minister of Finance and the Director General. We met the Governor General, paid a courtesy call on her just before she left for London, and we were very pleased to meet Her Excellency. The Cabinet of Ministers, of course, we met with the Leader of the Opposition and team. Earlier today, we had meetings with the social partners, which include business, labor unions, civil society, churches, youth. We met the members of the media. We've also met separately our bankers. So we've had quite, and there have some other smaller bilaterals, but we've had some really good engagements throughout. The key highlights for me, there's several, but the one I start with is the visit to a mentorship school, CW Prescott, which we did on Monday evening. It was just a delightful experience to visit with the principal, Mrs. King, and Albert King, and the entire team there. And the children played pan beautifully. And then they did a chorus speaking, paying tribute to the ECCB. And if you haven't heard it, I want to encourage people to go on our Facebook page and actually listen to it. They were great. So that was certainly one of our highlights, engaging with the CW Prescott Memorial Primary School. But also listening to people who have commended our work and encouraged us in terms of what we're doing. So we've gotten a lot of feedback from people saying, we're pleased with the direction, we like the work, and I wanted, of course, pass that on to our team. And then, of course, how else we could help. So it's been a really good week of engagements, and we're energized, frankly, by those encounters.
Well, let's get into the meat of the matter here this evening, Governor. What are some of the key recommendations to help strengthen St. Vincent's economy and to build resilience as we rebound from the COVID-19 pandemic and the eruptions of the La Soufrière volcano?
Well, I think, first of all, it's just the constant need for the coming together of the country to work together. You know, when times are tough, St. Vincent and Grenadines has gone through really, really difficult times. And the people have shown themselves to be extremely resilient. And the key really is just continue to work together, internally as a country and, of course, with partners across the region. We have been very encouraged by the growth performance. First of all, St. Vincent and Grenadines unlike many of the other countries in the ECCU, did not contract as deeply or sharply. And that is principally because you are less dependent on tourism. So we found, for example, in 2020, where the ECCU contracted by 17%, 1-7, Saint Vincent and Grenadines contracted only by about 5%. And then, of course, last year you had the very difficult year with the volcano. That would have set you back in the middle of a pandemic, no less. But this year, we're seeing growth we forecast of about 6% for Saint Vincent and Grenadines, and next year about 4%. A lot of that is construction, and we want to encourage those projects to be implemented. And of course, there are other things that we need to work on. Food and nutrition security. Saint Vincent and Grenadines is more fortunate than some of our member countries in terms of your agriculture production. And that's important. But we still import too much food. And so one of our key recommendations is for us to encourage even greater domestic food production and less importation of food. And so we made the point in our various engagements that to tackle the food import bill and to try to meet that target of reducing it by 25% by 2025, we must tackle 3 key categories of food: meat, grain, which includes our cereals, our breakfast products, and fruits and vegetables. If we have to make a dent on the food import bill, we have to tackle meat, grains, and fruits and vegetables. And Saint Vincent and Grenadines is well placed to help lead that charge. So we want to see more push in that direction. Clearly, with the volcano, there's a rebuilding, the eruption, a replanting that has to be done with agriculture. We understand that the breadbasket was hit hard, but we believe that it is feasible, and we are encouraging, of course, that replanting happen. We've also encouraged a greater focus on the digital economy, because, Dionne, we have to accept, by 2025, 25% of the global economy is going to be digital. If that is the case, we have to prepare ourselves to be part of the digital economy. And as I always say, not merely as consumers, but as producers in the digital economy. So digital readiness in terms of skills, platforms, obviously connectivity. And then you have to look at safeguards like cybersecurity, those and data privacy. All of those are enablers and safeguards for the digital economy. And when you think about the youthful population here, it's so important for us to be able to give them the ability to play in that space. And so that is one of the key recommendations. They're already moving in that direction, but we've encouraged faster progress there because we believe that is key to the long-term viability of the Vincentian economy.
Well, I know for you, youth is very important. And in our conversation earlier today, you expounded of course, the importance of the ECCB and the development of youth. And we're going to zero that in particular in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines instance, if you can speak to that. Yeah,
so that's very important. You look at the demographics, we have to cater for youth. So we mentioned what we're doing with our mentorship schools and CW Prescott. And I will tell you, without getting into specifics, we made certain commitments to the school to support the school in terms of some technology, which we think will assist learning outcomes for the students of CW Prescott. So we're going to keep our word on that. And as I said, we want to impact this school year. So we have to deliver very quickly on that commitment. But I also want to mention a few other things. One of the programs that we do at the Central Bank is an IT interns program that we call Bright Sparks. We identify young people interested in a career in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, who want to do a career in STEM or in IT, and we bring them to the bank for an internship of 6 months, maybe even a year, and in some cases we employ them full-time. And so we're now engaging with the government and the authorities here to identify Vincentians who can benefit from that program. It's another example. I also want to mention the ECCB Children Connection program, which is a program we do on Saturday mornings, targeting the young people, the youth, with messages about financial literacy, financial empowerment, and generally helping them with life skills. That is something we want to continue. And the last thing I want to mention, there are a lot of things that we do with young people, is a program that we launched in October 2020, the Partial Credit Guarantee Scheme. Many people don't seem to know about that program. And so one of the things I've been doing this week is to bring some attention to this program. What is this program? Essentially, using financial institutions, banks, credit unions, development banks, we are, through that program, guaranteeing up to $750,000. This is very important for small businesses,
Yes.
very important for entrepreneurs. Many of them are young people who are looking to push their ideas and they need access to credit. So with that program, up to $750,000 can be guaranteed, 75% guaranteed. We also have in that program 3 products: starting capital, working capital, and what we call classic guarantee. So I am making the point that that program is intended to help our young people pursue their dreams by getting access to credit. And we are going to be marketing that program more so that people can take advantage of it. Because here's the irony. While people are lamenting the lack of access to credit, at the very same time, there's excess liquidity in our financial system. Deposits are actually growing faster than loans. So we have an opportunity to bring people who need credit with liquidity that is sitting idle, but we have to create an enabling environment. So sometimes these youth, these entrepreneurs can't access because they lack collateral, they lack a credit history, they lack a track record, they don't have the right connections. The credit bureau partial credit guarantee is intended to help them to be able to access credit and to include them in the financial space. So that is an exciting program. We have $30 million available for that program right now, and we really want to see more Vincentians take up that opportunity.
And I guarantee you after this program, they will be doing that, Governor.
We look forward.
Let's just go back to something you mentioned earlier. We spoke about it briefly, about the whole COVID-19, but this time I want to look at it from a regional perspective.
Yes.
How would you characterize the sub-region's recovery prospects for the adverse effects of COVID-19 as it relates to our economies?
I think we're recovering relatively well. Given the size of these economies and how dependent we are on tourism, I think we've been recovering well. Last year, the regional economy, ECCU, grew by about 6%. This year, we expect to grow by about 7%. Next year, about 5%. So on that trajectory, we could return to pre-pandemic output levels by the end of 2023, 2024. However, Dionne, we've been hampered in the recovery by inflation, exacerbated now by the war in Ukraine and related sanctions. So at a time when the economies are starting to pick up steam, we're grappling, governments, households, businesses, with inflation. That's a challenge. And then the other issue I want to mention briefly, which is of course is tied to our tourism, which is the largest sector, foreign exchange earner in our economy, is the difficulties with regional connectivity. That is the reason why we have not been able to move about faster. Look at the summer festivals. Right. A lot of people could not come in for Carnival because they couldn't get a flight.
Correct.
Even now, people are finding it difficult to move around the region because of the connectivity. That is creating a drag on the recovery of our economy. So it would go even faster. We recover even quicker were we to have better connectivity arrangements. So that is clearly an issue for us.
Well, what we want to do at this point, Governor, is you spoke about this issue, the issue of air connectivity at the change in the chairmanship of the Eccb Monetary Council in St. Lucia. So we want to play this short clip and then we come back and discuss it some more.
Okay, sure.
Our region is also dealing with the Liat shock as a consequence of the greatly diminished capacity of Liat occasioned by the pandemic albeit with significant pre-existing conditions. When we consider that at least 20% and up to 1/3 of all arrivals in our region come from our member countries, intra-Caribbean travel, we begin to comprehend the magnitude of the late shock on regional air connectivity. Setting aside for a moment the prohibitive cost of travel and the onerous schedule where service even exists, it is an affront to our Caribbean civilization and an assault on our regional integration movement that many Caribbean citizens now find themselves requiring a U.S. visa to travel within the Caribbean. I know this vexing issue is occupying the minds of our heads of government, and I will say no more at this time as we look towards a resolution.
Very profound statement, Governor. You call it the Liat shock. How do we go about navigating through these rough waters, and what levers are available for the region to rectify this problem?
Well, I will tell you that this is an issue that is top of mind for our heads of government, and we are also involved in some of those discussions. The thinking of our heads right now is a sort of two-pronged strategy. Try to get additional capacity so that we could immediately improve the current situation. In many of our countries now, we are relying on twice-a-week flights from Liat, which has only 2 planes. We are relying on American Airlines, which is some of our countries a daily service. We are relying on British Airways twice a week to get in and out of our member countries. And like we've indicated, in some cases, you have to go up to Miami and come back down. That means you have to have a U.S. visa. So the first thing is to try to create some additional capacity. There's work going on there now. I will reserve additional comment because I want statements to be made by the appropriate prime ministers at the appropriate time. And then the second phase is really to a longer term strategy for how we will, using a combination of public and private sector initiatives or capacity airlift, to be able to address sustainably the need for airlift across the region. Because fundamentally, it's a regional public good. It's a bridge. It's a bridge. You can't have regional integration without connecting people. And whether it's for business, whether it's for pleasure, whether it's for family reasons, right now we're struggling there. So I know the Caribbean Development Bank is leading some technical work, arranging some technical work to guide the governments in terms of what this new framework will look like and what the contributions are going to be from the various governments, because there is an understanding that governments will have to make some contribution, but it obviously has to be a very efficient arrangement based on a clearly articulated connectivity plan for the region. So we have to, for the moment, sort of bear that pain, but I can say that work is on the way in respect of addressing that serious challenge for our region.
Thank you very much, Governor. You're viewing Conversation with the Governor. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the Russia-Ukraine war and its impact on the region. We'll be back just after this.
Do you own or manage a business? Interested in saving time and money? How about expanding your business? Then the Dcash Merchant app is for you. Receive digital EC payments instantly from Dcash customers anywhere via your smart device. Create invoices and track transactions easily in the app. And avoid the hassle of handling physical cash. Visit dcashec.com today for more information and to sign up. Dcash, the digital version of your EC dollar.
Welcome back to Conversation with the Governor. At our break, we indicated that we were going to take a look at the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war on the region. What are some of the main fallouts, Governor, from the war, and how can the region respond appropriately?
Well, I mean, the first thing is the humanitarian disaster. I mean, it's you know, when you see the disruption, the loss of life, the disruption, the dislocation of families, of women, of children, it touches the heart. And so, you know, we're part of the human race. It's very difficult to watch. So I think at core, all of us feel a real sense of anguish and pain about the pain and suffering in Ukraine right now. And we want to see the war come to an end. In economic and financial terms, we have seen several things as a result of the war. One, a rise in food and fuel prices, and I might add fertilizer as well. Mm-hmm. That part of the world, Ukraine, is a big supplier of grain, big exporter of grain. And of course, very much also Russia is a big exporter of oil and particularly gas. So the long and short is that as a consequence of this war, all countries, large and small, are experiencing higher prices for food, fuel, fertilizers, and financing. And I can explain that if you wish. So that is not good. So much so that, you know, we were coming out of COVID, starting to recover, and then this war, which has basically created further inflation. We saw some inflation because of supply chain disruptions or bottlenecks. Now that is exacerbated. But then we also have the issue now, because of inflation, major central banks around the world are being forced to raise interest rates to try to get inflation under control. The result of that is that the global economy is slowing, and there are possibilities, forecasts, that there could be a recession, certainly in Europe, as early as 2023. Possibly the US, but that is not so certain. Now, those have implications for us because that's our major trading partners, the US and Europe. That's where we get a lot of our tourism. So a slowdown, a recession in the US or Europe is not good news for us in the Caribbean. But the immediate concern, Dionne, is the cost of living, the cost of food, fuel, fertilizer, and financing. And financing, I mean, as the Fed raises interest rates, the cost of borrowing becomes more expensive if you're borrowing in US dollars. So you've seen it in the US market, for example, where mortgages are going up, the rates on mortgages, where financing in the global markets, especially for emerging countries, small countries, that financing is getting more expensive. So that fallout has been pervasive, and it is having a really deleterious effect, not just on the global economies, but even on the Caribbean economies, including Saint Vincent and the Grenadines.
Well, when you say that, I think about all the farmers, just to use farmers as an example, who are affected by these increased prices. And I just want to take you back to something you mentioned earlier on, the whole issue of the project where financing is available. For that farmer, that fisher folk, that young person who's listening and having to contend with all these increases, how do they piggyback on that in terms of accessing the financing for this project that you spoke about earlier?
So, by the way, on fertilizers, I'm told, you mentioned farms, that fertilizers have increased pricing 40, 50%, yes. Some cases 100%.
Yes.
So this is a serious issue.
Right.
In terms of the partial credit guarantee, you go into your bank or credit union and you ask them about the partial credit guarantee program and whether they could be a part of that. I don't have the list in front of me now, but I know several of our financial institutions here in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines are already registered for the partial credit guarantee program, including the Bank of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. And you go into those financial institutions, there are a couple of credit unions as well that are going to come on board. And you ask them, can I what is the possibility of me benefiting from this guarantee program? Ask them, okay? Let them respond to you, because it's available. And it's a way of helping people in a difficult time. And of course, you would know before that, we had the moratorium during COVID and even with the volcano to give people some relief in terms of debt servicing. But now it's time for recovery and for rebuilding and so on. So the key now is access to credit to be able to rebuild your farm, to expand the farm or your business. So that program is available, and farmers through their financial institutions can also benefit depending on what they want to do with their farms.
Well, this sounds like it complements very well the prime program that has been instituted by the government of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. And just to go back to on the whole issue of the farmers, that they've also provided concessions as far as the purchase of fertilizer is concerned because of the steep increase in those prices.
Right, exactly. And we want to complement the government's programs because the needs are great. And so I think with what the government is doing, with what we're offering, more people can be reached. And by the way, we spoke about farmers, but I want to also mention fishers.
Yes.
Fishers can also benefit from this program. In an earlier conversation today, the president of the Fishers Association was talking about the need for new engines and the fact that they need to make that investment and they need additional access to credit to do that. And I really thought that the partial credit guarantee program could help fishers as well.
Well, just to remind our listeners and viewers that we're taking your calls, and you can send your WhatsApp messages at 784-493-9861. That's 784-493-9861. You can also send your questions at Eccb Connects Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. We just take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll take a look at the vexing issue of climate change. Welcome back to our program, Conversation with the Governor, the St. Vincent leg of this program, coming to you from the Beachcombers Hotel in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This program is also being broadcast live on SVG Television, VC3 Channel 114, the API's Channel 116. It's being heard live on the National Broadcasting Corporation, and you can see it on most of all of these Facebook pages all around. Governor, we welcome you back, and we want to go into climate change, and I know this is another issue of immense concern to you. The climate crisis is an urgent matter that scholars and practitioners claim threatens our very existence. Mind you, there are some leaders who don't believe climate change exists. That's another thing altogether. What are your thoughts on this?
First of all, for the climate deniers, after what we've seen with extreme weather events, whether it be in the United States, Australia, and other parts of the world, I hope that that issue has now been settled once and for all. And we're not spending our time trying to convince people about climate change. Climate change is real. It's a climate catastrophe that we're facing with global warming. And we really are running out of time to take the requisite action. For us in the Caribbean, lowest emitters but among the hardest hit, we have to do two things. We have to advocate for the large emitters to take ambitious climate action. In other words, stop polluting the environment and start the business of not just mitigation but adaptation. But secondly, we have to act ourselves. We have to act. And I say we have to act because sometimes there's a bit of pessimism, almost cynicism. Well, the large emitters, they control climate change. There's very little we can do in the Caribbean, so why bother? I don't subscribe to that. I believe we have to take steps as well to do what is within our control. So, for example, we have to reduce our use of fossil fuels. 90% of all our energy needs are powered by fossil fuels. That is very expensive and it's very bad for the environment. So we want to see a bigger push with respect to renewables. That's number one. And that's, for example, motivation on the Eccb campus for our greening initiative, where by the end of this year, 100% of our energy needs will be generated from solar PV. Very proud of that project, but we want to see that across our countries. Here in Saint Vincent and Grenadines, for example, I know work has, you've always led in renewables with your hydro. I know significant work has gone on with geothermal. There has been a setback in terms of the recent findings where enthalpy is good, but permeability is problematic. I'm hoping that a technology will be found to allow Saint Vincent and the Grenadines to pursue its geothermal potential. That will be a game changer in terms of the cost of doing business and, of course, lowering emissions and just making it so much more efficient and making it so much more competitive as a country. We also have to look at the financial system, the greening, what we call the greening of the financial system. And here Eccb is playing a key role as well. Our financial institutions manage significant assets. Some of these assets are at risk to climate change. You think about our tourism assets. 90% of our tourism assets are on our coast. So we have to assess those investments very carefully, both in terms of physical risk, the actual climate change effect, as well as transition risk. In the cases of businesses which are in, for example, oil and gas that may have to migrate to renewables. And we have to look at what that could mean for those stranded assets. So there is significant work underway now by the Eccb, starting to work with regulators and our financial institutions to better assess the climate impact on the financial system. So when I say act, these are things that are within our control. The other thing is we have to continue to advocate for more resources for our region. This is something that we do and must continue to do, to bring more resources to the table for both mitigation, that's the lowering of emissions, and adaptation, preparing our infrastructure, for example, to deal with a rising sea level, to deal with global warming, and what that means for our infrastructure, the need for us to build climate resilient infrastructure. So there are many needs, and to do that, one of the things, and I'll end here, we are pushing is a renewable energy infrastructure investment facility, where we could bring both the capacity on the policy regulatory side as well as financing to assist our member countries to advance that agenda. But Dionne, we have to advocate and we have to act, and we don't have time.
Well, let us look at a more sustained approach as it relates to the financing of these solar PV projects.
Yes.
I know cost is a factor.
Yes.
Has the Eccb considered providing support in terms of finance for the support of these projects across the region, projects
Yes.
of these nature?
Yes, we are, in fact, so OECS, by the way, has a solar challenge initiative where they supporting through a donor, a development partner, rooftops and some other things for businesses. Through the Renewable Energy Infrastructure Investment Facility that I just mentioned, we are mobilizing resources, green finance as we term it, sustainable finance as it's called, so that our member countries can have resources to get on with their renewables. for example, solar PV. Solar PV is an important one. There are other things like wind and of course geo and potentially hydrogen. But solar PV is one of the lower hanging fruits. And I want to say, not just in terms of panels, but storage.
Right.
And the storage part is important. That came up today in one of the consultations with the social partners. The need to make sure that there's sufficient support from government, from development partners for storage, the lithium batteries and so on, so that we can expand our solar PV capacity. And that is certainly the experience at ECCB, where when I mentioned 60–70%, that's without battery storage.
Right.
To get to 100, we must procure battery storage, which is what we're doing now. So that facility is intended to help our countries acquire renewable technologies like solar PV.
I have indication that we may have a question shortly, but while we do that, Her Majesty the Queen is head of most of the countries within the ECCU. How does her September 8th passing position our currency in terms of its stability?
Yeah, Dionne, I'm glad you raised that because actually that has come up. I should have mentioned that earlier. In our discussions, people have asked, now that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has passed, what happens with our currency? Her image is on all of our notes. So I just want to say to people, nothing happens right now. The fact of the matter is that we have 3 to 4 years of inventory or stock of these notes, of these beautiful polymer notes, and we plan to use them. So you will see no change in respect of your notes and coins for the time being. Absolutely no change. However, her passing does raise the question, what happens next?
Yeah.
And we will need to have a conversation in our region about what we want to do, where we want to take our currency, what image we want. I can tell you there are a lot of people who feel that it's time for us to move in a different direction, and that rather than continue with the British sovereign, that we should be using our own landmarks and our own heroes and that sort of thing. So I look forward to that discussion, which has just begun. And we in time will obviously make some determination and make some announcements. But there's no imminent announcement. The notes that you have, we will continue to use. We have a lot in stock, pristine, mint condition, waiting to be used. We spend money on those, and we're certainly not throwing those away. So nothing will change where that is concerned. And let's be honest, I mean, we have great leaders like Sir Arthur Lewis and Sir Dwight Venner who are on our currency. They've passed, but their legacy lives on. They are on our currency and they will remain on our currency. So the passing of the Queen does not change what happens with our notes, certainly not for the time being.
Well, we've got another 15 minutes or so according to the schedule that we have. But I know the next segment of the program promises to be very interesting. So what we want to do is to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
When the ECCB took the bold step to introduce Dcash, the people of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union were at the heart of this decision.
It's about creating opportunities.
It's about connecting family.
It's about linking friends.
It's about changing the way we do business.
It's about transforming lives.
A journey to a place where none have gone before will not be without its challenges.
But challenges will not deter us from our goal.
It's about me.
It's about you.
It's about all of us.
So join us and let's make history together.
Welcome back to our program, Conversation with the Governor. Governor, just before we get into that exciting question, we've got a caller on the line. Good evening, caller. Welcome. Hello, good evening. We're just ensuring that we have that caller in line. Caller, you're live with Conversation with the Governor. Good evening and welcome.
Hello. Pleasant good night.
Okay, I think we can move on.
Hello.
Caller may have shied away. So
hello.
We will. Okay.
Yes. Good
Hello,
night. Pleasant good night.
And welcome. Yes. Thank you for calling. Good evening and welcome.
I would like to know. I started a business, right, but I'm not open yet. But as you say, couple of.
Hello. Okay, we seem to have lost the caller. Let's. We've got a question from one of the other platforms, and let's take that question one time. So the question is, Governor, is there an age limit for accessing the assistance from the partial credit guarantee?
Not that I know of. I think once you are a customer of the bank, you can do business. So obviously your bank has to process the application, and the bank is the one who speaks to the Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation. So the customer speaks to their bank or financial institution, say credit union, and that entity then makes the application on your behalf, the customer's behalf, to the Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation. I don't think there's any age limit, as far as I'm aware.
Thank you very much, Governor. We're going to move on now and take a look at the whole issue of bank charges. And the bank charges and their fees that are instituted by commercial banks, they're causing some frustration, and people are very frustrated about these charges. What measures can be implemented to govern control vis-a-vis these fees?
Yeah, the issue of fees and charges has come up this week, and I've heard it in all of the countries, all of our member countries. It's a real issue. I think I want to start by just explaining briefly that banking is expensive business. Let's just settle that up front. Banking is expensive business. Banks have to do and have been spending significant sums on technology, on compliance, and of course, cybersecurity. So banks obviously have to recover those investments. And banks are not quite as profitable as some people think. I'm not saying they're not making money, but I think some people think the banks are making far more money than they're actually making. Having said all of that, we do recognize in the bank that there is a genuine concern in the community about bank fees and charges. As I've explained before, in law, the Ecb has no authority to approve or not approve fees and charges. However, mindful of the concerns that we are hearing, we are taking steps to prepare legislation to set up what we are calling an Office for Financial Conduct, to give some guidance and to give some, frankly, in some cases, to mediate and to resolve issues that arise with respect to these fees and charges. What I will say to customers, in the meantime, while we are working on that framework, we do need customers to look at their options. In many cases, the digital options available in the banks are cheaper, if not so-called quote-unquote free. And so we want to encourage people to use those digital channels as much as possible. They're faster, they're cheaper to the customer. Obviously, they're paid for by the bank. And so you want to minimize your fees and charges, is what I'm saying. So to the extent that you can use more of the online payments, so you don't have to pay the ATM fees, or you don't have to pay fees for checks and those sort of things, try and do that. So do what you can to help yourself. But I certainly agree that it needs to be looked at, and we have begun to look at it. That is all I can offer right now. It's not satisfactory, I understand that, but at the moment the law does not authorize the ECCB to intervene in respect of bank fees and charges. All we can do is ask them whether they've given the customer notice. And notice here in the law means 30 days advance notice. That's all we can do. Have you given notice, which means publish the fees and given sufficient notice. We feel that more could be done and should be done via what we call, where we are proposing an Office for Financial Conduct.
And as we look to, we've got another question, so sure. I'm going to give way to that question sure. before we get this other one. You mentioned an internship in IT at the bank. Someone is saying that they have a daughter who's just finished college and wishes to pursue education or studies in IT. How can she get to be a part of this internship program?
So what we've generally done is we've gone through our colleges, our state colleges, A-levels, associate degree programs, and in many cases we've sent a team, one of our IT senior people, to go down, come to the country and listen to different pitches, see what the students are working on, their projects, and to make a selection or recommendation. That's generally how we've gone about it. Where we are having difficulties, we have asked the Ministry for ICT to assist us with identifying suitable candidates. We make the selection, but we go through a process where we review the person's academic performance, we review their projects, where they've done projects, and we make a determination of, based on what they want to do and their desire to pursue a career in that area. And then we make that selection. So what I would suggest to that person is that they reach out through the college. You said they just finished, so the principal or the head teacher in IT can reach out to us directly, or they can go through the Ministry of ICT, either way, and bring that person to our attention. But we certainly would like to be able to bring a couple of Vincentian students in our IT internship program.
We've got another question, Governor, sure. and I'll share that shortly once we're able to bring that to you. Just to remind persons that they are viewing and listening to Conversation with the Governor. Can you describe for us, Governor, ECCB's position on the issue of cryptocurrency? A, its trading, and B, the exchange from a regulatory perspective.
Cryptos.
Yes.
So I start by saying that the Dcash is not a cryptocurrency. That might be a shock to some, but it's a digital currency, it's not a cryptocurrency. What's the difference? A digital currency, such as we have, is fully backed by the assets of the central bank. Fully backed. No different from the EC dollar that you hold in your hand. Cryptos are essentially, many of them, based on speculation. So like Bitcoin, which is the most famous cryptocurrency, is based on supply and demand, buying and selling. Last time I checked a few days ago, I think it was around 22,000. A year and a half ago, it had reached almost 55,000. So you see the fluctuation.
Yes.
So some people have made money, some people have gotten hurt. What we say to people all the time, and I get asked by people, including even people in my church sometimes. First of all, what do you know about cryptocurrencies? What do you know about it? Secondly, if you desire to invest, can you afford to lose this money? Because you have to be prepared to lose it. I hope you don't, but if you do lose it, you have to be able to live with the fact that you've lost that money. Don't put in money you cannot afford to lose. Third, absolutely do not borrow to speculate in cryptos. Because if you lose that money, you have to still pay back that loan. never borrow to invest in cryptos. Are you hearing me tonight? Never borrow to invest in crypto. It's a bad idea. You're going to get hurt, and you're going to hurt the person who you're owing. Don't do that. Fourth, does that cryptocurrency have dispute resolutions? If you have a dispute, who will you go to to resolve those disputes? 5, is it regulated? The answer is no. In most cases, cryptocurrencies are not regulated. So I simply say to people, if you, after I've said all of that, if you are still interested in investing in cryptocurrencies, that is your decision. Just be mindful of the advice I've just given you. I have also said, and I will end on this, because some cryptocurrencies are being abused, used for money laundering, even terrorist financing, there will be a crackdown on cryptocurrencies. Major central banks and other monetary authorities are going to crack down on cryptocurrencies. And many of the cryptos that you see now will not survive a crackdown. I'm just telling you that. I can't tell you which ones will survive, but I know most of them will not, because there are genuine concerns about money laundering. Now, I will also say cryptos can be helpful. I mean, with the war in Ukraine, last time I checked, more than $70 million had been raised in humanitarian assistance for the people of Ukraine through cryptos. So it could be used for good. But unfortunately, there are people who are using it for very illicit behavior. And that is something that is not going to be tolerated. So I've said all that to say be careful.
We've got another question, Governor. Most of our banks do not want us to use the mobile banking applications like Zelle and other applications. What can the ECCB do about this?
Well, I was not aware that that's an issue, but my view is that all legitimate wallets should contend. So even with Dcash, I've made the point, I have never advocated, and we are not advocating for exclusive rights for the Dcash wallet. We believe that different providers will come up with their wallets. Once they are regulated, there's some kind of regulatory oversight so that they're safe for the public to use. Let the public decide which ones they want to use. And they will make that determination primarily based on cost and convenience. So I'm not sure why the banks are not allowing people to access Zelle, for example. That's something I will have to inquire about. I hadn't heard that before. But certainly my view is that give people access to these wallets, let them make their decision. So I don't know if there's a concern about money laundering. I'm not sure why that is the case. I will have to make inquiries about that.
We've got another question. Okay. Governor, what are the key initiatives, programs in the ECCB that you're pursuing to member governments with promoting the well-being and the development of people in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union?
Well, the first thing is keep the dollar strong. I mean, people take that for granted, Dionne, but the fact of the matter is, since 1976, our EC dollar has been pegged to the US dollar, 1 US, 2.7 EC. That has delivered for the people of our region relatively low inflation, confidence that the value of the dollar yesterday is the value today and will be the value tomorrow. We should never take that for granted. So that's the first thing. So when you talk about well-being, at least when you lie down in the night, you're not worrying about the value of the EC dollar. You have some peace of mind.
Right.
That's part of well-being, health and well-being, yes?
Correct.
You will agree with me.
Correct.
We're also pursuing financial literacy. We've just completed in Saint Vincent and Grenadines a survey, financial inclusion and literacy and inclusion survey. What we basically are trying to do is to better understand where people are at in terms of financial literacy and how we can design programs to elevate the financial literacy in Saint Vincent and Grenadines and across the currency union. Why is that important? A global survey found that only 1 in 3 persons are financially literate. Only 1 in 3. That means that 2 in 3 persons are financially illiterate. And having a degree does not mean you're financially literate. There are people with degrees who cannot manage a checkbook, who cannot manage their money. That's a life skill. So when we do our mentorship program, for example, in our schools with our youth, one of the things that we're trying to really ensure is that people are financially empowered. They understand the choices in terms of money management, access to credit, payments, insurance. All those are part of financial inclusion. So in our new strategic plan, there is actually a pillar called payments monetization and financial inclusion. And the reason for that is that we want to empower the citizens and residents of Saint Vincent and Grenadines and our currency union to be financially literate and to make wise decisions with their hard-earned money.
Thank you very much, Governor. We've got our final question in the interest of time. Governor, do you think that the recent implementation of these bank charges added to the takeover of RBTT and FCIB, is it that persons are losing faith in the banking system and its benefit to the public sector?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean...
Okay, can I read it again?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do you think that the recent implementation of the bank charges added to the takeover of RBTT and FCIB, is it that persons are losing faith in the banking system and its benefit to the public sector?
Yeah, I'm having a little difficulty understanding the question. Here's what I'll say. Bank fees and charges are not new. They have nothing to do with the takeover of any institution. People have been complaining about bank fees and charges before the sale or the purchase of the Canadian assets, whether that is RBTT, RBC, or now FCIB. I think there's separate issues. Some people have asked, why are the Canadian banks leaving? And the reason for that is simple. They are not making enough money in our region. They've made a lot of money over many years, but of late, they are comparing what they're making here with what they're making in Jamaica, what they're making in Bahamas, what they're making in Mexico. And when they sit in the boardrooms, for example, in Toronto, how much money did I make in Saint Vincent and Grenadines? 10 million, okay. How much did I make in Jamaica? 50 million, How much did I make in Mexico? 100, okay. Let's invest in Mexico and Japan. That's what it is. It has nothing to do, there's no sentimentality, there's no patriotism, there's no, well, these small countries need Canadian banks. Nobody's thinking about that. They're simply looking at the almighty dollar at the bottom line. So that's a reality that we have to face. We're small, and while these operations are profitable, we are not as profitable as compared to some of the larger countries. We will never be able to compete on profitability. So they've made a decision to leave. That's their decision. Our banks are now, indigenous banks are now purchasing these operations. And we have confidence in our indigenous bankers. I want to be clear on that. We have confidence in our indigenous bankers. They now have to continue to move forward. And here's a good thing. Unlike international banks who could pick up and leave, our indigenous banks are here to stay. They're close to the people. They better understand our needs. So I don't think we should see, it's unfortunate. I mean, I would love to still have some Canadian banks here as well, as with our indigenous banks. But the reality is that they have decided to leave. We have to make the best of the situation. And so the fees and charges are a separate issue to the acquisition of these operations. And let's keep them separate, please.
My major concern now, this is a question, Governor. My major concern now is how soon pensioners and the people who have invested large sums of monies into CLICO, how soon are they getting back their money?
Right, so that is a very good question. I think you've heard by our recent communique that in fact through the negotiations with the Barbados government, 37 million Barbadian dollars have been agreed on as part of a settlement for CLICO policyholders. We are now discussing the arrangement to get that money to our policyholders. It means that those monies are, by the way, they will not be issued as cash. They will be issued as bonds, I think 15-year bonds. So one of the discussions we're having is, can we convert those bonds immediately into cash so that people can get cash? They've been waiting since 2009. Some of them have passed. So this is a vexing issue for our region. And I want to commend people like Prime Minister Gonzalez, who for many years led the charge on BICO and CLICO and made some progress. Now that he's no longer a member of the Monetary Council, Prime Minister Gaston Brown is leading that subcommittee on insurance. Minister Gonzalez is a member as well, Camilo Gonzalez, of that committee. So Saint Vincent and Grenadines continues to look out for the interests of their policyholders there. So once we are able to settle on the transfer of the bond and convert it into cash, then we will be making arrangements for distribution. So we are working. I can't give you a time frame tonight, but I can tell you what our governments want, but until it is settled, I can't tell you definitively. But basically, they want to make that payment yesterday.
Right.
That's the urgency that we feel. But we have to go through the legal process of getting the bond transferred through a trustee, then getting the trustee to sell it for cash. We've already identified someone who might be able to give us cash at a discount. I must disclose that. And then we could then use that for policyholders. If not, policyholders can hold the bond for 15 years and get an interest payment every 6 months. Most people want their money now, even if it's a little discount. So you will hear more on that soon, because we are actively working on that issue of the payout from CLICO. And I will also say, even with that issue on CLICO, the BICO issue is still live, and we are looking at our legal options with respect to BICO.
Thank you very much, Governor. This has certainly been an interesting conversation. Your final thoughts, Governor?
I can't believe the hour is already done. It seems like we're just getting started. But let me end by thanking you, Dionne, for this conversation, which I enjoyed. And just spend a moment to thank the government and people of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, who have really supported us in this outreach this week. The Minister, Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, the Director General of Finance, the PS in the Prime Minister's office, the Commissioner of Police and his team, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, among others. And then, of course, our team at ECCB, our country manager, Ms. Coselle Fraser, and the entire ECCB team, Shumalon Kirby, Dr. Emma Fosordo, Mrs. Teresa Smith, Mr. Christopher Luard, and many, many others at our headquarters. So for all those who have assisted us along the way, management of Beachcombers Tonight, I love you, and others who have helped us in this mission, I just want to say thank you. It's a privilege to work for you, and we want to continue to work hard on your behalf. Also remember us in your prayers. Remember us in your prayers. We are privileged to work for you, but we also need to continue to rely on the help of Almighty God and the cooperation of our people to move our transformation agenda forward. So thank you very much, and I look forward through our bank to continue to serve you.
I think I speak for everyone this evening, Governor, when I say that we had what could only be a very great conversation. Thank you so much, Governor Antoine. I wish to thank all those persons who participated in the conversation in one way or the other. A special thank you to our special guest, Governor of the ECCB, Timothy N.J. Antoine. Thanks for being here with us. I wish you continued success as you travel across the currency union, and safe travels to your next destination. This has been a presentation of Conversation with the Governor. On behalf of the entire production team, I am Dionne John. Thank you for viewing and listening. Good night.